From the ashes of post-independence chaos, one man emerged from the shadows of war to the center of power and never left. Uganda, after 1962, was a nation spinning on a revolving door of leadership. 9 rulers in just over 2 decades. Instability was not an exception, it was the norm. And into that turbulence stepped Yoweri Museveni. In the 1970s, while still in exile, he was not a president, not yet a power broker, but a rebel organizer. He formed the front of the National Salvation Front NASA and aligned himself with the Tanzanian forces in a historic campaign that helped topple Idi Amin in 1979. A dictator fell, but peace did not arrive. Instead, Uganda slid back into political uncertainty. By 1980, Milton Obote returned through a disputed election. Museveni rejected the result. He called it rigged, and he chose the bush over the ballot. In 1981, the war began. With just 27 factional guns, Museveni retreated into the Luwero Triangle. It was not a grand army at first, just a fragile rebellion in dense jungle terrain. But from those 27 guns grew the National Resistance Army. They did not just fight with bullets, they fought with discipline, strategy, and a message, winning influence among communities exhausted by state violence. Then came collapse from within the state itself. In 1985, Obote was overthrown by General Itito Okello. The battlefield shifted. The moment was open. And in January 1986, Museveni forces marched into Kampala. The capital fell. The war ended. A new presidency began. But what began as a promise of renewal would evolve into one of Africa's longest political reigns. In power, Museveni once warned against leaders who overstay. Yet, over the decades, the architecture of governance around him began to change. In the year 2005, constitutional term limits was removed. In 2017, the age limit was scrapped, each amendment widening the runway of incumbency, extending the horizon of rule. Early in his presidency, Uganda saw stabilization, inflation was tamed, infrastructure was rebuilt, and Uganda became a global case study in HIV and AIDS awareness campaigns, drawing international praise and funding. But power was not also being carefully secured. Uganda positioned itself as a strategic ally of Western governments, contributing troops to regional operations like AMISOM in Somalia. Security partnerships grew, so did diplomatic insulation. At home, opposition voices faced increasing pressure. Leaders like Kizza Besigye and Bobi Wine became symbols of resistance, but also of recurring state crackdowns, arrest and surveillance. Meanwhile, power began to consolidate closer to the center of the family. General Muhoozi Kainerugaba rose through the military ranks to become Chief of Defense Forces, his name increasingly mentioned in succession conversations. From the jungles of Luwero to the corridors of Kampala, this is not a story of how power was taken. It is a story of how power was held, and now, decades later, it still endures. Martin Masharia for Tinted Labels.